Hello, and welcome back, one and all. So, we are up to chapter 15. We are back with Fiddler. Oh, and by the way, before I carry on, I almost forgot to mention, we have a surprise guest on the channel today, because I am on the Patreon of Talking Story. I am at producer level, and today I received my shirt and my bookmark and my cute little sticker, the reading boy, sorry. So yes, I received those today. Thank you, John. Thank you, Jacob. So we're going to keep that there, just as an homage to Talking Story, because they are one of my favourite channels. And John puts a lot of hard work into his channel, and so does Jacob. Jacob is extraordinary with his editing skills, and the relationship those two have is quite enviable, to be honest, because they have a great relationship. So they're great to watch. If you haven't checked them out and you watch my stuff, which I highly doubt you haven't seen them, because they have a huge following, but if you haven't, go over, check out Talking Story. So, cracking on. We're back with Fiddler in chapter 15, who is now known as Strings. And he's with his crew, and they are approached by fierce-looking warriors. At first they think they're going to be attacked, but then they realise that the leader of this particular pack is approaching to talk. And it turns out that they are a group called the Burned Tears. They were involved in the chain of dogs, and they helped with the what's the word I'm looking for? The survivors of that particular war. And once they'd done that, they then went home. And at the moment, they carry this guilt, because with the Wiccans, now is Blackwing another name for Coltane? I'm slightly confused here. But anyway, they feel kind of remorse towards Blackwing dying. And they come to aid the Wiccans, because they know they've made this mistake. They shouldn't have run. Or shouldn't have gone home, to say. So they've come back to fight in this war against Shattuck, and seeking recompense for what they did. So they approach Temel, who is now the Wiccan leader, and he's having some issues with the Wiccans following him. They're not listening. They won't pay attention. So this display is done in front of the rest of these Wiccans via sort of Fiddler's approach, and how he goes to Temel to say, you know, say this, say that, say the other, show some sort of standing, be a leader, which is what he does, and he accepts the following of the Burned Tears, and they are now loyal to him. So that is therefore hopefully going to give the rest of the Wiccans some pause for thought into how they've been treating Temel. So that's what happens there. Then we go to Kenneb and Gamut, who are talking of a dog. Kenneb's been sort of stalking this dog, and he recognises it because it was mortally wounded, and he saw it with spears in it, and the wounds it should have died from, but somehow it's still alive. It's been healed. Now, I think we remember from Deadhouse Gates that it was either Mappo or Icarium who healed that dog. It was kind of a last gesture. I do remember that, but I don't remember which one of them it was who did it. I know it was one of the two, though. So this seems to me to be the same dog, because then he goes on to talk about, this is Gessler's dog, and he has some distrust towards Gessler, Stormy, and a third of that group. But they also dislike Kenneb in return. So there's some sort of caution there. And they also talk of Callum, and how Kenneb saw Callum in the Seven Cities, and he is still actually alive. So that's nice news for Gamut to find out that Callum is still alive. We go then back to Fiddler, and Fiddler is hearing the song still. And as he's walking through the camp, he finds Nil and Nether, and they are performing a ritual, and he goes over, and he starts to hear this voice. He's still hearing the song, and he hears this voice, and it's this character called Sormo Enath, who is a warlock. They've summoned a warlock, and this warlock is telling Fiddler that he needs to go back to Rariku. Because we know by this point that it's going to be Fiddler who needs to finish off the song. We know that at this point. So he needs to make his way back to Rariku and find his kin. And there he will be awakened. I don't know who the he is as yet, but apparently he will be awakened if Fiddler finds his kin in Rariku. Then we go to the Argent, and the army have reached the city of Ubarid, where they are to meet the Admiral Nock to resupply. But not what she spotted, Tavore, is that northward on the horizon, the whirlwind is blazing. It looks like a second sun. It's that bright. And she talks of how she feels the enemy, Shaik, is indifferent to her, how she doesn't feel like she's kind of watching or tracking her. Either that or she already knows exactly what's going on with Tavore, which is possible. They are sisters. She may well think that she knows her well enough to not stalk her. Potentially on Shaik's part, I think that's a bit of a mistake. But yeah, that's the situation. Tavore isn't feeling Shaik, or the goddess kind of penetrating her in any way. So then Gamut suddenly thinks that there may well be spies within the camp, potentially reporting back. That's why Shaik isn't doing this, is because they're reporting back. Because don't forget, Tavore and Gamut and the rest don't know who Shaik is yet. They've no comprehension that it's Felisin. So to them, it does seem strange that she's not sort of tapping in, trying to find out what's going on. But we know that's because she's her sister. Then on to chapter 16. So the Song of the Tanno, the Spirit Walker, Callum. At least I think Callum is now starting to hear it. The further on we go in this chapter, we find out that he actually is. And he wakes up this particular day with a Baccaral pup on his lap. And this Baccaral pup is a little bit mangy. And Megora, who is Iscarol Pust's wife, wants to kind of kill this pup. And at this, Callum, who isn't usually kind of an affectionate person, actually prevents her from doing that. He doesn't allow her to do that, which is kind of out of character for Callum, being an assassin, but that's something that he does. And then Iscarol Pust is going to join Callum to go to Rariku. So whilst Callum is hearing this song, he thinks that it's Megora, and he asks Iscarol, was Megora singing? And he says, no, I don't know what you're hearing. So Callum is now hearing the song, the call to go to Rariku. So that's where him and Iscarol Pust are headed, is to Rariku. With the help of Iscarol Pust and the Azalian, they reach Rariku, and when they get there, Azalian shows up, the demon who helped previously, and he breaches the whirlwind. He sort of picks up Callum, breaches the whirlwind, and throws him through, so he can not be harmed by the whirlwind, and he gets to the inside of the whirlwind. So Callum's now in Rariku. He's in the whirlwind. We then go to find Cotillion finding a body, and it is Hall. Now, because we're back with Cutter and Asperal and Cotillion fighting near the throne. If I'm correct in this, isn't Hall Nock's wife? Wasn't she one of the first members to join with Callum and Dancer? So she's Nock's wife, and she's supposed to be dead. She's may now well be dead, but she's been alive all this time and been with the Traveller. Now, we have a bit of an issue with the Traveller. Dancer recognises the Traveller. He has previous experience with him. He is one, if I'm getting my facts straight here, Traveller was one of the first to be with Callanbed and Dancer prior to anyone like Taishran or Dujek or Surla. So there is definitely a history here, and he left for whatever reasons. We haven't found that out yet, but there's clearly history with the Traveller. So that's interesting. Then we go to Pearl and Lestara. They come across corpses, one of them being Borden. who we know is the Talon. So Lestara tells Pearl that she definitely killed Shattuck the Elder. She definitely killed her. So it was the Red Swords that killed Shattuck. I don't know if we know that in Deadhouse Gates, but I may well have missed it. But yes, it was the Red Swords that killed Shattuck, and so she's absolutely adamant. She knows that they killed her. So why then, or who then, is this with the whirlwind? That's the questions that are being asked. And this then obviously enables Pearl and Lestara to think, okay, well, there was this ambush by Grelin. Now there's 2 survivors, which is Haboric and Felasin. So they've got to go now to find Haboric and Felasin. So they're all going to come to a head, aren't they? All these people are seemingly going to end up in this one spot of Raraku. That's the way it's seeming it's going. Then we get back to Onrak and Trull. And Onrak was with Icarium in the Painted Cave. It was actually Onrak. If I'm understanding this correctly, it was actually Onrak who painted the drawings in the cave. And Onrak within this cave painted Kilava, Toll's sister. And in doing that, he actually trapped her. He chained her to this cave. As we know, House of Chains. So everybody's chained to something. There are metaphorical links for everybody to something. So she's chained to this cave. And apparently it made her immortal. I thought she was already immortal, but apparently in doing this it made her immortal. Then we go to the Lioness, and they are having a conversation, and they decide that what they need to do is seek out an old friend. That old friend being Icarium. They call him the Slayer of 10,000. So he really did do a number, didn't he? No wonder he's got a lot of grief. He really did do a number if he killed 10,000. But they need him to help them suss out the land that they're in, because obviously they're not kind of familiar with it, so they need him for that. Chapter 17. So it starts off with 7 gods, 6 are turned to Teblar, 1 is lost. Now, my first instincts, don't know why, because it goes on about something to do with children, if I remember rightly. My first instincts were, it must be Sybil. That's gone, that's missing. She's the one that's not turning to Teblar. The further along in this chapter we read, something happens to Sybil. So, Karsa is working on his sword. Is this sword purely just a flint sword, or with it being mentioned black stone, is this an Otateral sword? I would assume it's Otateral, because otherwise I don't think a flint sword would be quite as powerful as Otateral. So I'm assuming it's Otateral. So let me know if I'm wrong in the comments. I do think it's Otateral though, because it says it's black stone, which is literally the Otateral. That's what that is. So let me know if I'm wrong. But so he's working on his sword, and he's having a conversation with the gods, and Sybil says a few things that he doesn't particularly like, and he ends up striking her down with this sword that he's made, and he technically cuts her in half, or kind of, I think that's what he does anyway. That's what it seems like to me, that he cuts her in half, because she lied to his people, basically. She told them that if the children were defective, that they were not worth having, and that they should hand them to her, they should give them to her. And that's what she's been doing all this time, is in essence stealing these defective children. So this enrages Karsa, and he does attack Sybil. But what he does then, so he then threatens the other 6 gods remaining, tells them they better leave quick, which they do. Then off the back of that, he picks up Sybil and the head and the shoulder and the arm part, and stuffs her in his backpack. And I think the comment is made that he's going to keep her to make her the handle of this sword at some point when he gets the chance. I think that's what it was suggesting. Which part of her he's going to use, I don't know. But he's got head, shoulder and arm. He's just missing knees and toes, isn't he? Oh, sorry. Then we go back to Onrak and Trull. And they they are the ones. So as Karsa is leaving his cave where he's been forging this sword, so to speak, them to approach this cave, because I believe that this is the same cave as where Onrak is speaking about where he was with Ikariam. So Karsa is leaving, they're going in. Karsa barrages them two out of the way, sending them flying. But he doesn't like necessarily really hurt them bad. He does hurt them, but not that bad. There's a fire in there, and it's kind of described as a strange fire that then dwindles out. And as they're sort of talking and, you know, what we're going to do now, and they decide to leave, there's a pair of strange hands that approach Trull. So, and then they touch him, and it's put in italics, a pair of hands. Who is this then? Because obviously you say hands and I go straight to Haboric. Ghost hands. So is it Haboric? If so, why would he be reaching out to Trull? Tista Joe, what's the connection between Tista Joe and Haboric? I'm not quite sure. Or is it Sabal? Is she reaching out somehow? Or is it the crippled god? Or is it potentially anybody else who I'm not thinking of? Then we're in Jag Odan with Karsa, and he comes across a character called Sinigig, and he's been sent by Aramala, which is the woman who Karsa freed in the Talan Warren. She was weighed down by a rock, and that's the lady who he freed. And she has sent Sinigig to help Karsa find a horse, a jag horse. So in order to do that, they have to go and see this other character called Prillis. That's how I'm going to say it. And the story behind Prillis... Oh, and there's a quirky little thing with Sinig as well. Sinigig. He hides himself in a chest. The chest is his home, apparently, until Animas have come past and ignored the chest and not found him. So he apparently hides in a chest. So we go to see Prillis, and she's telling us a tale of what her life was like and how she's ended up, because she is actually merged with a tree. And what happened was, as a child, the Tilanimas came, basically bludgeoned her village, speared her into the ground, but what happened was her blood being spilled into the ground renewed the roots of a tree, and it began to grow again. And as it did that, it grew with her in it. So she is now part of this tree. Now, what also she says is that Ikariam comes to the tree to ask for the wood, because it's heartwood, and he asks for this because he is trying to make a mechanism of time, and she doesn't allow him, because she won't allow him that much wood because it would kill her. But what she does allow him is branches and such, or a shaft, so he can make a bow and he can make arrows. So yet again, Ikariam is tied in to more characters. So Karsa then, after hearing this story, is told to go and choose a horse. The call is made, the horses show up, and there are thousands of them. They didn't think that many were going to show up, but they've come from everywhere. So it seems like word has gotten out that this Toblakai wants a horse, and they're all more than prepared to be chosen. So he chooses his particular horse, which has got a white mane and a white tail, and he rides it away. Then Sinigig and Prillis have a conversation, and they talk about how the Tilanimas must be kind of silly to have not spotted the house. And Prillis says, well, it is buried under my soil. But it is a house, it is an Azath house. Now, don't we have an Azath house in the 7 cities? That is a gate. So this little bit confused me a little bit. I must be honest. I'm not entirely sure about just this little section, because it's talking about Ikariam. Does it mean Ikariam, our Ikariam, as in right now with Mappo, or does it mean Ikariam's father, and he too was Ikariam? Because it does mention his father, but it also says that Ikariam went mad, and then he was cracked on the head by a Toblakai. So I'm very confused there, I must admit. Oh, my neck. I've thought about it a couple of times. I can't see how, unless it's prior to Shatik and Leoman and Toblakai, arriving at Raraku that they came across Ikariam. I've just thought of that now. That may well make sense. But I'm not sure if Toblakai has met Ikariam prior to when he fought him before and Mappo again clonked him on the back of the head. But Ikariam broke Karsa's sword. So I'm kind of confused there, I must be honest. I'm not quite sure who or what that is, but it does sound like our Ikariam because they're talking about madness, and we do know from Mappo that is what Ikariam was like. He was kind of a bit of a lost soul, and that's why Mappo was originally meant to take him out if he did anything more, but they became friends and that didn't happen. He's now more of his protector than he is sort of the guy who's meant to take him out. And then I've read kind of halfway, I think, into chapter 18. So we've done some ploughing on today. And this is book 4, House of Chains. So we're getting toward the end, guys. So Tavore has been... We're looking at Felicin's point of view of Tavore. And when she was younger, Tavore played with soldiers recreating the Royal Ultan and the House of Kazaz Davor battle. And she was basically trying to analyse and work out possible alternative sequences to the battle, which would have meant a win, because the Davor house lost its name. So she's trying to suss out strategies for a win. So even then, I mean, Paran had left the house by now. So she was caught kind of shadowing in Paran's footsteps. He'd left for education, and she wanted to clearly shadow in his footsteps. So even then she had this kind of ideology of war and how she wanted to kind of be involved and work out strategies and statistics and logistics of how to win a battle. So, you know, she may well be the best adjunct that the Empress is ever going to have. I guess we'll have to see. So Felicin is recapping all this, and she's saying how she would spy on her and watch her, and questioned whether Tavore had ever actually been a child and played and enjoyed herself. And then Felicin also believes, she goes on to say that she'll believe that one day, she believes the whirlwind will, once it's, you know, won the war, won the battle, and spread enough blood in the land, that it will actually enter the deck of dragons, like the house of Chains has. She has this idealistic idea that the whirlwind will become part of the deck of dragons. Then she's having a conversation with Mathok and Lorik, and they are talking because Lorik approaches her, and obviously at this point he's quite concerned, quite stressed. He does want to help Shaik, but obviously he has, or it seems he does anyway, but he has some reservations. He also wants to help Felicin. And I do think that's where more of his priority lies, with Felicin rather than Shaik. So anyway, they're having this conversation, and it's about hot and cold iron. And what they're describing is that usually in battle you have hot iron, which is the ones that seek vengeance, and obviously, so therefore denoting kind of a rebellious, hot-tempered, kind of potentially to make mistakes, hot iron. Whereas when you've got a cold iron, they're much more sure of themselves, know the plan, know what they want to do. Cold iron is obviously not as vulnerable as hot iron, because hot iron can be broke, whereas cold iron is a lot more, there's a lot more strength to it. So they're making these kind of comparisons, and they're telling Shaik that presently she doesn't have cold iron in her military, if you want. She doesn't have that. And then Shaik goes on to say, well, you know, you talk of Cotillion being cold iron, and you say Cobolo Dom is hot iron. Cobolo Dom beat Cotillion, and they say yes, but the 9 battles prior to that, Cotillion beat Cobolo Dom. The problem is, and why he won Cobolo Dom, is that purely he had snidey help from Malik Rel, therefore enabling him to beat Cotillion. It wasn't in essence a fair fight. If it would have been a fair fight, hot versus cold, Cold would have won every day of the week, but because he had this infiltrator, this spy, this trait, this doghead called Malik Rel, Cotillion was able to be beat. So Shaik is now kind of worried, and she's asking, who do they think Tavore is? But the thing is, she knows the answer. She knows that Tavore is cold. She's cold iron. She's good under pressure. She's not going to panic. She's got this plan. She's been doing strategic battles from a very young age. She's been working out the logistics, the strategy. So she is going to be very similar to Cotillion, to Coltane, and have this sussed. So Shaik is now worried. So what she needs to speak to her Boric, I think, about this. And prior to that, she sort of says to Lotharic and Mathok, who they say you did have, and she said, okay, who's that? And it turns out that the cold iron she had was Leoman and Karsa, or Toblakai. But they are no longer there. Leoman is off with his desert warriors, and Karsa Toblakai is doing something completely different. We still don't know at this point if he's working for the crippled god or not. We haven't heard him agree to those terms. We haven't heard him say. He's even slain one of his own gods who has been brought back, and he's sort of chopped her in half. She's not dead, but he's chopped her in half. So we don't know, is he going to join the crippled god or not? We don't know if he's actually going to be his first sword, so to speak. So then we're with as I say, Lorik and Felisin, and she's doubting. At this point, she's realising herself that she too is kind of chained and controlled by the whirlwind goddess. She is like a puppet. She's not really having a say. The whirlwind goddess controls everything, and it seems like the longer she's doing this, the more she's kind of realising that this isn't her fight. She wants it to be because she feels betrayed by her sister Tavore, and now she knows that Paran's alive, and she feels too that he was betrayed. There's this vengeance, this anger in her, but the whirlwind goddess doesn't want the same fight as what Shaik wants. So she's kind of realising that she's being manipulated. She also needs Lotharic to act and help her do something, stay loyal to her. Then we see Lotharic go to see young Felisin, and they talk of Shaik, and they too mention the control factor. The whirlwind's got the control, etc., etc. But they need to discuss their next moves. Like there seems to be a feel of potentially Felisin now realising that Felisin older as Shaik no longer has the same adoration, the same feelings for her as she once did. So Felisin knows this is not her mother, never was her mother, but for a time she did feel like she was. And now she again feels like she doesn't want to know her, she's not interested. So she feels again like she's been left. And I'm getting the feeling that there's some, I don't want to call it betrayal, because I don't think it's betrayal, but there's some twist of loyalty happening between Felisin, Lotharic towards Shaik. I could be wrong, but I feel that's what's kind of happening here, is alliances are changing. So at this point, Shaik decides she's going to go and see her Boric. He's been with her this whole time, and she seeks him for when she needs advice. She goes to his tent. She kind of threatens that there's going to be trouble if he basically doesn't let her in. And this is a superb part of this chapter. I have stopped here because I don't want to go much further than this today, because this is a great part of this chapter. As she enters the tent, because now we know her Boric is the distraint for Treach, as in Tiger of Summer, God of War, this tent is now a temple. Because he's the distraint for Tretch, he has now set his tent up like a temple. And as soon as Shaik/Felisin enters this tent, the goddess is left outside. And the only one left in this tent is actual Felisin. And she then suddenly realises, because Hiboric refers to her as either Shaik or goddess, whatever it is he calls her, and she turns around and says, no, my name is Felisin of the House Paran. This is only a short little happening, but he at this point warns her, you need to get Bidithel on your side because you have betrayers. You need to have Bidithel. And then as he's shoving her out of the tent, she wants comfort, she wants to have what she had prior from Hiboric to sort of make her feel better, sort of, like I said, comfort her and make her feel better. But he's not doing that. She's got something she has to do, and he shoves her back out the tent. The brilliant part is, and how Treach has done this, I don't know. Maybe he's more powerful than the whirlwind. But once Felisin and Shaik are as one again, there's no recollection of this particular conversation. It is as if the memory says that she's been to see Hiboric and all is well. And she knows she has to go now to talk to Bidithel. And I think that is superb. That is mastery. I like that. That is brilliant, because just goes to show now what Hiboric is capable of. So, a couple of interesting chapters there. I am looking forward to reading on. But yes, that's where we're at for today. So, I'm going to leave it there. That's today's video. It is coming up for 2:30. I've been reading since, I'd say 7 this morning. So that's how we've managed to get quite a bit in. Other than that, I will inform you guys that I am doing something a little bit different. I have a video planned for towards the end of May, because we know it's Mental Health May. And I myself have issues with mental health because of my actual health and things that have happened in my life. So I have an idea. So on this particularly awful rainy day in Manchester, I have my new Talking Story merch, and I'm going to leave it there. So you guys have a great day wherever you are in the world, and I will see you tomorrow. Thanks as usual for watching. If you watch till the end, you're an absolute superstar. And yes, till tomorrow. See you again. Bye-bye. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. We'll link somewhere here another video for you to watch. If you fancy that, please click on that. And as usual, thank you for all your support. Till next time. Bye bye.